Hello and welcome. Today I'll be presenting a penetration test I performed on Metasploitable 2. This virtual machine was designed for training and testing and is used here to simulate a real-world security evaluation. The goal was to scan vulnerabilities, analyze the risks, and then apply fixes that would improve the system's security. Several scanning tools were used to complete this process. By the end of the test, I was able to remove some of those serious threats, and I'll show how that improved the system. Planning is the most important part of a penetration test. I started by choosing tools that would give different kinds of information. Nmap was used to scan open ports and detect services. Nikto and OWASP Zap were for web vulnerability scanning. Nessus gave a full vulnerability scan with CVE references. I ran Nmap first to give a network view, then focused on web services based on the ports I found. I organized the process by documenting each step, saving screenshots, and comparing results from tool to tool. Penetration testing is important because it helps identify and close vulnerabilities before attackers find them. Security isn't something you set and forget. Even strong systems can weaken over time. Regular testing ensures your defenses still work. The phrase "inspect what to expect" applies big time here. Pen testing also builds trust. Companies that test and fix security issues show that they care about protecting their systems, users, and their reputations. When something didn't work as expected, I took it as a learning opportunity. For example, Metasploitable 2 uses older commands like etc init.d Apache 2 to restart services, not the modern service commands. These little failures taught me about legacy systems. In real organizations, errors like these highlight areas where staff needs training. Since most security problems involve human error, it's important that employees are well trained and updated regularly. Skipping training to save money often leads to bigger problems later. Nmap showed that the Metasploitable 2 machine had over 20 open ports. Some of the critical ones were port 21 running vulnerable FTP, port 80 running outdated Apache, and port 8180 running Apache Tomcat. These exposed services give attackers several entry points. Nmap helped me understand which services were available and where deeper scanning should begin. Nikto found several issues with the web server. It reported that X-frame options header was missing, which makes the sign vulnerable to clickjacking. It also showed that directory browsing was enabled and the trace method was active. These are all misconfigurations that should be fixed since they leave the system open to attacks. Zap confirmed what Nikto found and discovered even more. It showed that some pages were exposing hash data, there were missing security headers, and there were potential path traversal risks. Zap provided a deeper look into the behavior of the web apps and made it easier to understand how an attacker might exploit these flaws. Nessus took the longest time to run and gave the most detailed results. It identified three major issues: a remote file inclusion flaw in the Motility app, cross-site scripting in Tomcat sample pages, and open directories exposing content. These were labeled high risk and linked to known CVEs. Nessus helped validate what other tools found and showed how severe the risks really were. Based on all the scans, it was clear that the system was highly vulnerable. There were gaps in configuration, outdated services, and unsafe applications. I compared these results to security best practices and found that this system would never pass a real-world audit. Of course, since the goal was to reduce the most serious risks with simple fixes. I chose to remove the Motility app, delete the Tomcat sample applications, and add the X-frame options header. These three changes were fast, free, and directly tied to the biggest problem that I noticed. The idea was to make the system safer with just a few steps, removing public attack points and adding basic protection can go a long way in hardening a system. After applying the fixes, I reran the scans. Nikto no longer showed the motility nor Tomcat sample apps. The X-frame option header was now included in HTTP responses confirmed using the curl command. Although some lower risk issues still remained, the top vulnerabilities were clearly removed, and the system was much more secure than before. I chose these fixes because they had high impact. They helped me understand how small changes can greatly reduce risks. I expected the issues to be resolved, and for the most part, they were. The one thing I learned was that not every tool reports things the same way. I had to verify changes manually. I also learned how to work with older systems and deal with outdated configurations. One of the biggest takeaways would be emphasizing how security is about being proactive. Penetration testing isn't just about hacking, rather, it's about protecting people and systems before something goes wrong. Thank you for listening. Any questions?